Hi, my name is Adam Modesitt from Tulane University. I'm here to present Groundwork. Groundwork is a design-build project executed at Tulane University by a team of 14 students in an intensive single semester in a studio. The project itself it served a local nonprofit. It is a multi-purpose outdoor classroom event space / community facility for the nonprofit of the same name, Groundwork. And the organization itself, Groundwork, educates local grade school students about environmental conservation, water management, urban agriculture, and similar issues through this space. And the overall goals of the project in terms of the client or to adopt cues from the local urban fabric and to create a space that was distinctive, vibrant, colorful, befitting the work of the nonprofit. In addition to the outdoor classroom itself, the project scope included landscape design, water infrastructure, perimeter fencing, signage, gardening stations, and storage facilities. The studio pedagogy integrated research into local vernacular building traditions while working closely with the nonprofit and other local stakeholders. Throughout, the studio sought to combine, hybridize, and discover new possibilities for architecture at the intersection of advanced digital fabrication technologies and sustainable vernacular construction methods. And this is an overview, or rather an aerial of the site showing the students working on site, which was about 10 minutes from the university, from the classroom. And most of the work occurred off-site, but in the end of the semester, it was intensive on-site. The site itself is situated amid in New Orleans, in the Marigny, along a thoroughfare, but amid a primarily residential fabric with a mixture of small retail and commercial. And this fabric looks like this. It's bright, it's colorful, traditional shotgun houses, primarily with a mixture of other types thrown in, but primarily single and double family houses. The houses are painted diverse, bright, vibrant color schemes and are predominantly symmetrical around a single pinch roof with stoops and porches that mediate between the entry and the street. An area of the site which is located here, this green L, and some of the immediate adjacencies include 3 shotgun houses and a parking lot for a food co-op and some offices across the street from a school, and the surrounding is primarily residential. The site before we began looked like this. A huge amount of the physical work of the studio was simply clearing the site. In New Orleans, the plants grow very, very assertively. But it was cluttered with debris, vines, weeds, and dilapidated equipment. And you can barely make out here, but a black perimeter fence enveloped the entire site and prevented any visible connection to the street. And many local residents were even unaware of that this green space even existed, seeing only the fence. And to the right a little bit, we can see there's a bioswale that wrapped around one end of the site in a variety of trees, and then various mounds and so forth. The studio process involved a mixture of traditional studio reviews and design charrettes, as well as engagement with the nonprofit and other stakeholders. The client had a long history of operating the city in addition to client leadership. Former students of the nonprofit or former others that worked with the nonprofit provided this context for a robust stakeholder engagement. And the reviews themselves interwove academic disciplinary discussions with lively stakeholder debates. And large-scale models, you can see on the left, that could be played with and even occupied themselves, became instrumental tools for engaging stakeholders and developing architectural ideas. from the beginning, prototyping was instrumental to the studio. We explored how vibrant color could be incorporated into the site, and these dyed concrete prototype explorations quickly emerged as a central research tenet, motivated by both the local vernacular and the client's express desire for an enlivened site. Small-scale prototypes offered opportunity to test a range of pigmentation, material techniques without significant expenditure of money or time. And here's some of the early prototypes showing explorations of pigmentation, form, shape, texture, all in concrete. Very quickly as well, the studio moved into large-scale prototyping. We had a very limited budget and no contracted labor at the studio's disposal. The students had to develop design and construction expertise in parallel with designing the site and the project itself. And large-scale prototypes offer the opportunity to test not only material performance, but also to identify and assess logistical issues, such as how much concrete can be carried by a single student at once. We're looking at a range of the concrete mixing and dyeing activities. The design of the site is primarily focused. I'm primarily talking here about this outdoor classroom labeled 2 along the street, but extended deep into the site through landscape storage. 6 is raised compost beds. You can see a new perimeter fence meets the street. 5 is compost bins, which included the 5 it was compost bins, which was actually done in concrete, and 6 is the raised planter beds, and other entrances, storage, and so on. And the sections looking through the site, you can see the main primary outdoor classroom and how it's adopting the gable profile from the adjacent, some of the adjacent vernacular. I should mention at this point too that we discovered belatedly that there were no structures permitted, no structures on the site. So the notion of this exposed gable frame was to allow the possibility of shade across the gable while skirting the no enclosed structures requirement. And a few photos of the process. This is the digging up the site, delivering of concrete, and so forth. And this is these are elevations and drawings related to the gable. It's about 16-foot gable profile walls. You can see on the top 2 elevations of the interior of the walls, showing how a slide gate slips through, and the openings in the walls create porosity and visibility through to the site, as well as below are some of these are the drawings for the formwork and formed liner. The form liner was the idea behind this was to create this pattern relief on the interior, distinguished from the inside and outside of the space, which I'll show more photos of in a minute. This pattern relief was created through the application of a custom CNC form liners and foam, and the surface patterns were designed to evoke like a brutalist bush hammer finish, but a brutalist that's kind of associated with brutalism, but by putting it in this context with brightly colored concrete in place of a kind of brutalist somber tones. And we'll show more on that in a moment, but most of the work, the physical labor, as I mentioned earlier, occurred off-site in a wood shop, as much as possible because of constraints of a wide range of constraints, weather, transportation, so on. As much as possible is prefabricated. So some of the structures actually of the formwork is overloaded, but it was built here, tested, and then disassembled and shipped to site. And it's overloaded because it's really designed around these modules that could be reused. This is some of the form liner that was CNC'd form liner to create these patterns, and work prepping the rebar. A section through the project showing how the foundations and the paving system, again, in a very wet climate, there has to be drainage was a primary concern, and also being exposed to the element with the possibility of with the openings and so forth. There's various details to ensure that this is as overstructured as possible. These are the layers of dye. I think this which was all executed in Excel, but each layer, through extensive testing, developed a formula for creating a gradient across from top to bottom of the gable, which is not, I should note, proportional to the amount of dye. The dye is not proportional. There's an exponential, perhaps logarithmic kind of fall off to the amount of dye needed to create what appears to be visually as an even gradient. So this is the work on site. Some images of the work on site through the opening. The work on site was very, very quick, a matter of a few weeks for the erection of the structure. Site clearance took more time. And here, on the right, a near completed gable wall with the gradient from a dark blue pigment to white at the top, with the pattern relief and the opening, and the wall on the left being under construction. Some of the dye being put into storage, so that we obviously couldn't leave anything on site, but everything was done manually. We had a low budget but high manpower, so there's a lot of repetitive work, which was our most efficient means of executing of construction. The tile being laid over the sand, which itself is over gravel. Here's some of the tiles, of course made with the same pigment, and a photo of the exterior. So you're looking at, from the street, the school behind us, and looking at what is the outdoor classroom, which is defined by these two gables with the possibility of spanning a shade or tarp or a canvas system on top, and the new fence. You see the term Earth Labs, which is what they called the site, and the slide gate actually slips through the slide gate of the same material that slips through the gable, the concrete, to open up the site to the street. And one anecdote is that we had one incidence. You can faintly see here the term fig or something like that. We had one incidence of graffiti, and the graffiti, I don't know if artist is the right term. The graffitier wrote fig, and actually only wrote it in this space, which is where we left for signage. So we left the relief pattern off explicitly for signage, and we appreciated that whoever tagged this recognized that this was designed for signage and didn't tag the rest of the project. So here we're looking across the street straight on Earth Lab, and you can see how much the porosity of the fence, and when it's open, the site becomes completely open. And from inside, you can see the slide gate open on the right and closed on the left. Detail of the texture of the concrete, looking off to, this is the compost bin in the distance with a kumquat tree just before it. And some of the activities at a very rainy kind of opening day event. And one last slide, again looking through the outdoor classroom / entry through to the compost bin, with the surrounding site as a surrounding yard as part of their kind of the landscape design and water infrastructure and so forth. Thank you very much.